We are seeking a spiritual warfare against the battle against white supremacy. Now, I want to offer an example here that in many ways, Asian communities and African American communities are in the same situation. So for African American communities, I've often described how the spiritual demonic power of white supremacy, the gaze of the dominant culture, defines the black community so that the rest of us have to play along. So that when the white male looks at the black male is either a pet or a threat. The black male is a pet because the white community wants you to entertain them, wants you to be their comedians that make them laugh, the musicians that make them dance, and the sports athletes that make them jump up and clap. But they also see you, if you're not the pet, you become the threat. You are the unidentified black male that commits every crime in our city. You are the individual that is seen as the unsafe person in our society. And even worse, if you are the pet, that becomes the threat. Hypothetically, it could be an athlete who takes a knee, that pet has become a threat. Hypothetically, it could be pastors who decide, we're not going to play the game anymore, we're going to stand against injustice. You've gone from a pet to a threat. And it is the same scenario that Asian Americans often find ourselves in. The gaze of the white dominant culture looks at the Asian male and says, you are a pet or a threat. And you heard the phrase, the model minority. We will trot you out there, our pet, and say, look, why can't you be like our pet, the model minority? And in some cases, as has been explained, the Asian American men and the Asian American community felt comfortable with that identity. We maybe embraced that identity, but how quickly this pet in American society has now become the threat. The yellow peril that needs to be excluded. The Japanese citizen, US citizen, that needs to be incarcerated. And the Chinese American and the Asian American that must be either beaten down or taken away because they are a threat. They are the Chinese virus. They are the Kung flu. And how easily and quickly it became for that pet to become a threat. And we've seen this on the gendered side as well. Bell Hooks says that when the white male gazes upon the black female, he categorizes the black female in two ways: the Jezebel or the mammy.
Willie Jennings talks about the 4 quadrants of relationship, a 4-part relationship between the white male, the black male, the white female, and the black female. And that interrelationship between these 4 oftentimes is determined by the gaze or perspective of the white male.
The Jezebel, that is the sexualized fantasy of the dominant culture, and the mammy that takes care of you and gives you what you need. You see that same paradigm now play itself out in the Asian community as well. So what happened in Atlanta? Well, clearly it was a sex crime, because why would anybody want to kill an Asian woman unless she was a sexual object that was tempting the white male? So we've got to kill that threat of the sexualized Asian female. And then you see the actual people who were killed. And they still didn't change the narrative. A 74-year-old woman, a 69-year-old woman, a 50-year-old woman, and these are objects of your sexual desire? That's what you've got? That's what the excuse you've come up with? Because you are seeing the Asian women as disposable and invisible. The ones that pick up the towels after you. The ones that feed you, the ones that take care of you. That's what you've seen the Asian women. You have sexualized, or you have made invisible the Asian American woman. This is the reality of white supremacy. This is the reality. Now, how do we break it? We break it by saying we will not listen to what these demonic powers tell us. We will not judge one another or guide our thoughts about one another by the way these demonic forces have shaped our thinking. That is a lie from the devil. We will not view each other in this way. Our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against these powers and principalities that tell us to look at each other not through the eyes of grace and mercy and of Christ himself, but through the eyes of these demonic powers. So how do we break through? The good news word, the evangel diction, is that narratives can be broken, imaginations can be changed, worldviews can be upturned, spiritual powers can be broken. Picture with me this image, and it's hard to do because we're in Chicago. Picture a very high hill. And picture with me, we're in a city center, but picture we're out in the countryside, and there's a huge tractor trailer tire. It's bigger than you are. It's at the top of the hill. At the bottom of your hill is your pet, your dog, your cat. And you're in the middle of the hill, and that big tire starts rolling down the hill. And you've got to stop this because it's going to kill your dog. So what do? You said, I'm going to get in front of it and stop it with my superhuman individual strength. What happens to you? You're going to get flattened like a pancake and you are gone. That tire has rolled over you. You say, wait a minute, maybe I have another plan. I'm going to jump into the tire and try to stop the tire. And you try to work to fight the system, and you get caught up in the system, and you end up adding more momentum to that tire. So we have tried as individuals to fight the narrative. We have tried to fight the system. But what we have not done is seen that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against the powers and principalities of this present darkness. So to beat a messed up, evil narrative, you create new narratives. When the narrative in the world says we are to be at each other's throats, no, we say the counter narrative is a beloved community that stands for one another and stands up for each other.